started using the Production 2 laptop for OBS.
Oh yeah. And everything else is just kind of that third party thing.
Yeah, gotcha. Maybe.
I don't know, man. It's a little wonk. I saw that email. It's like, yeah, he's gonna work on audio and video and stuff like that, and also like maybe he'll be able to garner like interns to come in. And I was just like, Richard Adam wrote that. But then, but even when you were talking about interns, it's not that I'm against interns, is that I wouldn't even be able to tell them to do anything because Temple is such a cluster of like random stuff.
Well, and that's the whole thing.
I can't even, what am I supposed to be teaching them? How to set up things 2 seconds before it starts?
What they put there with like the megachurch like volunteer thing, they can do that because well, and not only that, production wise, you're talking about, you know, a crew of 10 people that can run a service, and then you can have, you know, them train guys on camera and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the thing is, my biggest thing will always be, and I would like to talk to everybody, you know, when I have my review and when I talk to this guy, is basically the same thing I've always said. We don't have a direction. So like you can't really do anything if you don't have an actual direction. Like if we have interns, that's fine, but I don't know what to teach them. Like where are we going with this? And it's like it's this giant like nothingness.
Not only that, like the thing that one of the things that just doesn't make sense to me in that email is when they go like, oh, he'll, you know, do audio. Yeah, I'm just
okay. Yeah. Well, this is
yeah,
well, that's all. You can put that.
Yeah, just throw it on the side. Yeah, I'll be fine. But like the whole thing about it is like in 90% of our videos we don't really need an audio dude to be there to like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we could if you wanted to have a boom, like a guy running the boom.
Well, yeah.
But the thing is, like, we don't have anything set up for any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a production department, so we don't have
if
anything
they want
set to do anything.
If they wanted to have, you know, buy an external recorder and a boom and like do all that stuff, then like, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But we don't have
we basically have the bottom of the barrel of anything. Like we haven't even remotely started anything about a production part. And then again, I'm not gonna knock them because this is the first step. You have to have a director or whatever, so that's fine. But I do want people to know that because we don't have a direction of audio and video, like there's almost nothing we can do for this stuff. Like, because I still don't even know, like, are we supposed to? I mean, Steven's here, but it's like, are you supposed to be making, like, content for stuff? God, I don't really ever see him do that. I see him, we made, like, what? We made cars and kidgets and
so
maybe one or two other things.
Kidgets, right?
I finally watched it.
Yeah. So he comes up to me like, so I finished it Monday, sent it to him. He got everything approved. Tuesday comes up to me and goes, I think I have one final edit. And I'm like, everything's approved. Like, what do you want changed kind of thing? And he goes, what was it? He's like, there's not really a good spot for me to put the URL, right? So he goes, I was wondering, not if you could put it over the entire video at the bottom, but if you could put it on the graphic. I'm like, the graphic's up there for 15 seconds at the end. Like, put it in the description of anything. And he goes, no, but I think like it should be in the video. I'm like,
so why? You can't.
Well, here's the whole thing. You can't click it.
Yeah,
it's in the video.
That's the thing.
And what purpose would it serve? Because aesthetically, it's
funny.
Good morning. Hello. But like aesthetically,
I did start the stream.
Aesthetically, it would be, you know, super clunky, and no one's going to pause the video to write it down. They would rather just have it, you know, available. And I had to like meet with them like 3-4 times to basically just be like, we can't. Like, there's no way we can.
I like we had 4 views for that. When we were doing the test. 4 people are like, what are they doing?
Who's this?
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. I do
Yeah, I
think
was just like,
he had
what are you talking about?
random things to say.
Because like I said,
Because it's not a hyperlink. I don't know how you would put a link anywhere unless you wanted, uh, unless you wanted to put the link over top. As far as YouTube, you can put like a banner or whatever, and you can just add a link there. But why? Why would you just say
yeah,
the
like I
link
said,
is in the whatchamacallit? You can't really type it and you can't really click on it. So plus, then you would have to ex, ex like go back in the Premiere Pro, add that, and then export it again.
yeah. Yeah, but when he asked me for that, I'm like, dude, no, like I'm not putting that in the video. And like I said, it turned into like I met with him like 3 times about it, and finally I was like, listen, like I got a lot of stuff on my plate. I'm not, if even if I have time to like do it, I'm not Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Oh, look, see all kinds of transactions going. Oh, there you go. Hope that works. It'll be a good trip.
Morning. Have a nice day.
Too. What's going on?
Yeah? Didn't mean to annoy you when I
That's all right.
Good morning.
I'm used to being here.
Good morning.
You used to it?
Good morning.
Marshall?
I didn't read it all, but it looked like it's a good picture. Thank you very much.
Easy to write those letters?
Yeah, she said she's got water in her house, so she's mopping up water. Putting up water in her house.
Well, I'm already having withdrawal
From.
from not having class in August.
Oh.
I mean in July.
Yeah, we're recording an album, so
Oh, okay.
it's a bit demanding, the schedule.
Yeah, okay.
Morning, Jack.
This is the last.
The girls in there already know.
Till August,
You
yeah.
walk without a
Yeah,
walker?
Thursdays are tough because I got the,
Where's your walker?
after next week, I'll be done with my class after this one. Then I can.
Good for you.
Good morning. I normally come in 4 minutes late. I'm interrupting the normal socializing energy
Right,
that I
right.
leave here.
That's right.
I apologize.
It's okay.
It's nice to see a good chavrusa. How's everybody? So we're gonna, I hope, finish chapter 16 today and start the second chapter of the long short way. The long short way. And yes, we do, for anybody watching online, we do take a break for the next 4 weeks. I apologize, we have a big project, a new recording we're doing, and we're going to be in the studio happily working away, so I have to take a short break. We'll be back in August, however. But it'd be a good time to review. There's a lot of ideas we've gone through, so maybe pick some of the lessons from previous. And on that, the first of the classes, the first one with the long short way, Danelle or Adam, do you know the date of the first one? Can you look that up online if you're... that one, we didn't actually put the class number on it. I think there was some mix-up based on the views. It may be that some people sharing these classes at home have not watched the first class on the long short way, which I'd recommend. So go back and look at the first time that picture appears. It's class 30-something. 34. Make sure you watch class 34 because that's where we started our system of meditation. So we've learned so far that the long short way is to direct our minds to use Jewish meditative techniques to focus on really any of these divine concepts, right? The overarching idea that there only is God, God fills the entire world, the world doesn't exist compared to God, and many of the meditations that the Alter Rebbe will provide, that merely focusing my mind on that, on a consecutive repetitive basis, and going deeper into it and letting it fill my mind, that will definitely create emotional flow in my chesed and gevura flow, and will create emotions of some degree, and that will be able to elevate both the mitzvah and the Torah that I'm involved with in the world, and also elevate my animal soul. And that's the basic pathway of Jewish meditation. We're not so worried about, have I reached nirvana? Have I attained enlightenment? Do I see through the illusion of the world? It's fine to be a human living in the physical world, doing physical stuff, and living with the perhaps distorted perception that the physical world seems the most real to us. Okay, that's where I am. Within that, we use meditation to use the intellect to inspire and engineer emotions. And then those emotions, the emotions are not really the point, the emotions are there to elevate Torah mitzvahs, including my own animal soul. And then the second point we learned this chapter is that even if the Torah, the emotions that I create are not the same running through the field, laughing with joy emotions from the movies, or running from the dragon who's breathing fire at me, fear in the movies, that's okay. I can still accomplish the whole point of meditation, which is infusing the Torah and mitzvahs that I do with a soul, so to speak. The body's there. I'm physically doing them. I want to fuse them with a soul. And that soul allows them to elevate. And as we said, it elevates through one of the four spiritual worlds, and can actually unite with the sefirot that we learned about within those worlds. And that's really why a soul is here in a body on earth, is to elevate certain aspects of the world that are there for us to elevate. And no one else can get at them. They've been waiting for you and me, and you can do yours and I can do mine, and it's through this technique we can achieve that. We can elevate aspects of the world and of our own animal soul. So even if we don't have full-blown emotions, these tvuna emotions we discussed, which are the way the intellect reaches out towards emotion, the way the intellect creates opinions perhaps, the way the intellect thinks, well, I should feel this, right? I should have this emotion. It's intellectually makes sense to have this emotion. I'd like maybe to have this emotion. I don't have it yet. But if I've generated those tvuna emotions, those proto-emotions, those function just as effectively at elevating mitzvot, even though maybe it's less fun for me. Right? Maybe I don't feel so good about myself. I'm not this, mature, emotionally, tied-in being. I'm not happy to do the right thing and afraid to do the wrong thing. Maybe I don't feel like I'm such a profound person. But guess what? It wasn't really about me. It was about the Torah mitzvahs. And I'm still elevating them the same way. So however satisfied I feel about the process, it achieves the same thing. That's the key. That makes sense? That's this chapter. And we'll wrap up. We're on page 240. We're at the note. וכמו שכתוב בזוהר ועץ חיים, דתבונה אותיות בן ובת, שהן דחילו ורחימו. Joey wanted to go this way. Thus,
it is also written in the Zohar and Eitz Chaim that the Hebrew word
tfuna,
understanding, comprises a letter which form the word
ben
and
bat,
son and daughter, which in terms of human emotions represents love and fear.
Right, so this is one of the looser word plays that we have in our tradition, but straight from the Zohar, and also Eitz Chaim, major mystical sources. So perhaps it's there to kind of show us when it comes to finding beauty and meaning in learning, we shouldn't be too picky and we shouldn't be too detail-oriented. If it adds beauty, why not? So we're ignoring the hey here, we're using the bait twice, that's fine. But within Tvuna, you see there's the words ben. So if you take they follow Tvuna is taf veit vav nun hey, right? Eitz Chaim is another mystical text. I haven't studied it. Mystical text. Yeah. But a Tvuna, the first two letters, the taf and the vet, if you go them backwards, that's bat. And then the vav in the middle is u, is and. Then you take the bet again, and the next letter, the nun, and that's ben. So you kind of have to pick them out. But the words son and daughter are contained in the letters of the words understanding, Tvuna. Right? So this is for those who like kind of the letter connections. And what does that mean? What are the parents and what are the children in terms of intellect and emotions?
The parents are the intellect.
Right.
The children are the emotions.
Right. So this is from chapter 3. We learned about the intellect and the emotional aspects of the soul. And the emotions are the parents of the intellect. So if I think all day about golf, lo and behold, now I get excited about golf. I love the idea of a golf tournament because I thought about it. Right? Had I never heard of it, not thought about it, not spent time, I wouldn't have those emotions. Right? When you intellectually focus on something, that generates emotions. That's just a standard mystical reality. Not even mystical, just personality reality. And so we learn the same thing here. Tvuna, which is the aspect of intellect that directly generates the emotions and connects with them, it also says ben ubat, because it's the tvuna that creates the son and the daughter of the intellect. The son, in this case, being love, and the daughter being fear, because that's the male and female poles of the emotional realm.
I would say the love is the parents towards the children, and the fear is the children towards the parents, no?
So there's a suggestion here that love is the parent and fear is the children. So why is that?
Fear / awe.
You feel like if you love something that creates fear?
Because the parent is an authority, and it's the same way you feel towards God, is this fear / awe, because God is an authority kind of idea.
You're saying like in the parent-child relationship in the world, the parents kind of love the children and the children fear the parents? They have respect for them? Is that what you're saying?
Fear / awe, respect.
Yeah, but does
I'm
a child,
thinking of the Ten Commandments.
the Ten Commandments, yeah?
Because that's the way that goes.
How
you
so?
know, That, it's a vertical arrangement where you're looking up to your parents, where it says honor your father and mother.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a vertical thing where the authority figures are above.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, it just came to mind that way that,
I see. You fear what's above, you don't fear what's below you. Is that
well.
what you're getting at? Like the Ten Commandments are,
I don't like the word fear.
okay, you
Because
respect.
to
you
me,
respect.
it's awe respect, awe
Yeah, yeah.
slash
You have all
respect.
four, yeah.
Yeah, that you, look at.
Yeah, but
the
I mean-
relationship is that way.
You also have love. Like when we were at Sinai and received the
Yeah, well,
commandments, we also experienced love for things above us.
right, but
Yeah.
the parents, I'm feeling the love is coming from the parents and the respect and the awe is coming
Okay,
from
yeah.
the
So
children.
a parent doesn't necessarily have awe or fear of from their children.
Right,
I see that. That makes sense. Although, I mean, for our role, going from below up, I do think there's both love and awe for us. I'm not sure in this case that the love generates the awe. I think they're independent kind of aspects.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, we're talking about in my personality, what generates what, right? So the parent and the child, it's not so much like real life parents and children. It's more who's in charge, who's running the house here.
right,
And I don't think you could say that love, if I have more and more love for something, that automatically that's going to create respect or awe for it. It could be just the opposite. I could love it so much that I have no regard for its feelings. I'm just overwhelmed with my desire to have it, control it, and I have no awe. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I could love someone's car so much that I steal it, right? I mean, that could happen, right? The love does not automatically generate the awe. Would you agree on that?
I think you have to have a certain amount of awe
Yeah.
it's a part of love.
Yeah. I mean, you can say it's included in love. You can inter-include them, and I could express my respect for someone as an aspect of my love for sure. But in terms of what directly generates it, I think it's more powerful as a technique to say, when I consider things that make me understand that I should have respect for something, that will develop the actual feeling of respect directly. Whereas if I love something, maybe that will generate respect also, maybe not. It's not obvious. So here we're talking more about just how we generate emotions in ourselves, and that's why we call the intellect the parents. I mean, I like the points you're making, but for our technique here, intellect is considered to be the parent. It gives birth to the emotions, and it also directs the emotions. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's why tfuna, this little play on words, is benuvat.
I like that.
Yeah. ולפעמים התבונה יורדת להיות מוחין, בנותבה דזעיר אנפין שהן אותיות התורה והמצוות.
Sometimes the tfuna descends to become the intelligence in the feminine aspect of a small image, i.e. the recipient of the divine midot, or attributes which are referred to collectively as the small image, which in human spheres refers to the letters of the Torah and mitzvah.
Right, so the normal order.
The normal order would be that the tfuna descends first to the small image, the midot, and thence to the feminine aspect, the attributes of malchut. Sometimes, however, there is direct flow from bina to
Malchut.
malchut, bypassing the intervening midot. In terms of one's service to God, this means the normal procedure should be that the understanding derived from one's meditation should affect his emotions, arousing a love and fear within him. And these emotions should in turn express themselves in one's actual performance of the commandments. There is, however, an alternative method of affecting one's emotions through the direct influence of the tefillah.
So the way we looked at the aspects, the attributes of our soul, you recall we had Chochmah Bina Da, the intellect. Those generated emotions, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and that all flowed out through the funnel of Malchut, which was us expressing in the world. Right? So if you look back at Label's book and the maps, we have it in previous classes, that's the normal way of happening. Intellect generates emotion. That emotion is powerful, and that generates thought, speech, and action, Malchut. Sometimes the Alter Rebbe says it actually skips that, right? And instead of the tefuna creating powerful emotions, the tefuna just goes straight to, and here he uses the kabbalistic terms, nukvad zeranpin. Zeranpin, which is the small image, the small face, if you like, the small, the partsufim, if you like the kabbalistic terms. That's all the 6 emotions. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Right, so instead of nukva going and creating emotions for Zeranpin, it goes to the consort of Zeranpin, which is Malchut, and that's looking at them as personalities, where Zeranpin is the masculine and Malchut is the feminine, and they have romance and they get together and things happen, right? And we create thought, speech, and action, but it's more of even a sexual kind of model where the male is entering into the female, so to speak. So we don't often use these kabbalistic terms in the Tanya, but basically saying instead of the intellect creating chesed and gevura flows, which then flow through the rest of the attributes and flow into malchut to create thought, speech, and action, rather nukva can go directly to thought, speech, and action, and it's like the emotions of the intellect are generating malchut directly without dealing overtly with chesed and gevura, etc. Yeah? We don't need to understand all that. For our purposes, we're saying the tevuna can actually infuse action, thought, speech, and action with the appropriate tevuna emotions, and that works. That's what we're saying. This is the kabbalistic way of describing it.
Is that kind of like when the Shabbos bride at Mara's service on
Yeah, Shabbos bride
creates that higher.
Yeah, the 6 weekdays come and flow into the Shabbos bride is like the 6 emotional sefirot flowing into Malchut, and it's all very much a mirror of the same model.
Paragraph always
Very good.
intrigues me.
So his purpose is for doing the commandments. That's really the bottom line. Is all this is so you can do the commandments?
Yeah, we're gonna. That's the next chapter. He's gonna really wrap it all up, and you'll see that he describes as that's the whole point of existence.
I'm having trouble with it.
Well, it doesn't mean all the commandments, right? But you do commandments, yes.
Yeah, but to me, if he said life instead of commandments, in other words, you do these things happen so you can live your life.
Okay.
That makes more sense to me than, but actually, he's coming from a different place that I'm coming from.
Right.
So,
Well, why does life
I'm
work
not
better than
exotic.
commandments for you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does life work better than commandments?
For me, it does, because it explains how you approach and how you live your life,
So you want to have
not how
appropriate.
you do the commandments.
You want to have appropriate emotions for life. You're
for
saying.
life.
For
right.
life. What if I say life is video games? That's what I like, and I want to have fear and awe for video games. I'm going to spend as much of my time
That's
as
video
possible.
games. That's not all of life.
Says who?
Well, if you're eating and you're sleeping and you're
So that I can
you're
play
at-
the next video game. That's what That's
well,
what my
that
life's
may
about.
be your ultimate favorite thing, but that's not your life.
Well, it can become my life. I can make it my life. Why not?
Am I correct in what I'm hearing is then life, the purpose of life is to do mitzvot. That's what I'm hearing you saying if he puts it his way.
He's saying the purpose of life is to
Right.
do mitzvot.
Right,
I'm saying
and that's
it's
what
a
you're hearing.
it's
Does
a end
that
in
make it
itself.
easier? Okay, there.
Just
then-
living.
Life is in itself.
Yes.
Yes.
But how do you define life? Life. What kind of life? Right. I'm saying. I'll take one further.
Whatever kind it is.
I'll take one further. My parents, my father was an assassin, and his father was an assassin. We come from a long line of assassins, and my life is all about learning how to kill people skillfully, and that's my whole purpose in being. And what's wrong with that? That's my life. So, should I be creating intellect and emotions about killing people? Is that a good idea?
Well, I'm just saying it just happens that way.
Well, there's good and bad people.
Yeah.
To who? Good and bad to who?
Your life may be
Yeah.
to perform mitzvot, but maybe there's a bigger picture is what she's saying. There's other things involved, good or bad.
Okay, but so if
I'm saying all the commandments are life. It's really life.
Oh, well,
If the
if you wanna-
Torah is life, it's Chaim.
if you want to equate them, now you're agreeing with the Alter
Yeah,
Rebbe.
yeah, I
Yes.
guess.
So it sounds
yeah.
like you don't really have
It's
a
not-
problem with his
Yeah,
with his
I'm
premise.
it's the terminology that's
Yes.
kind of affecting me.
Yeah. So mitzvah, when we say mitzvah, we say that's the only way of a limited created being to connect with an infinite creator, right? It's from tzavta, from connection.
Right, pathways, yeah.
Yeah. So the mitzvah, those are that's our way of letting, so to speak, the Ein Sof have a physical experience, right? We sit here and we learn Torah, or I give tzedakah, or I take care of another Jew. And when I'm doing that, the Ein Sof is right there with me. I'm creating a home for the Ein Sof. I'm letting time, space, and consciousness meet, and I somehow am caught up in this oneness with the Ein Sof, which is impossible otherwise to get to, right? So that's, the Alter Rebbe and the Torah and Judaism and Temple Israel all say these mitzvot, those are the Jewish, aha moments in life. Those are the things that define what makes life purposeful.
Yeah.
So if you want to say the purpose is just life, you can, but now your opinion and my opinion are on even playing ground.
Okay, so life is defined by the Torah and the commandments. And so,
For Judaism, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want that, then how are you going to say that my proposition that life is video games is any less good than your proposition that life is about learning and helping people?
well, I'm not here to judge you. If you,
Okay.
I'm just looking at
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
It's more comfortable for me
Or
to.
into our mundane life.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's just more comfortable.
Let's hear it.
Yes.
A while back, I cut up this article from the Jewish News, was written by a businessman, and he looked at his business as a way of serving people. And he says there's only one role that any of us have in life, only one, and that's to be a server of other human beings.
Very nice.
And
Very nice.
that's what he said.
So good. I mean, these are important points, and it could be we could have a whole, series on that question, right? Are we aiming at life or aiming at mitzvahs, and says who, right? I mean, that's a big question. One of the premises of Judaism is that mitzvahs are meaningful, and as Reformed Jews, we choose which ones we engage in. But I don't think I know of any stream of Judaism that would say, well, never mind the mitzvahs. Let's just look at life. Like I don't think that's.
Say never mind them.
No, I don't hear her say.
I'm just calling it a different name, I think.
Okay, well, that I'm good with.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go on. Good. And lest we are concerned that we don't understand this footnote, the hamaskil yavin, the initiated shall understand, which always means small s, don't worry your head about this one. And just go on. צירוף זה מצרף הקדוש ברוך הוא כדי להעלות מעשה המצוות והיסק התורה הנעשים על ידי מחשבה טובה הנזכרת לעיל עד עולם הבריאה.
But God affects this joining of Tavuna to action in order to elevate the performance of the commandments in the Torah study, which are carried out through the influence of the good thought, the Tavuna, mentioned above, into the world of Beriah.
So that's what happens when I meditate and create tavuna emotions. Even though I haven't engaged my chesed and gevura in the way that maybe a tzaddik would, right? I'm not dancing with joy or trembling with fear. Still, I did the meditation, I created the tavuna emotion, then I did the action, thought, speech, and action. And as we learn, God connects a good thought with a deed, right? And that actually can succeed in elevating the mitzvah and Torah to the sefirot within Bria. Even though my soul has no business dealing with Bria, and is not stationed in Bria, and does not stem from Bria, I'm just here in time, space, and normal asiya. These twin emotions can elevate it 2 worlds up to Bria. Yes?
What does V-I-Z dot mean?
Vis-a-vis, is that what it means?
Yeah.
What?
I think it means in other words.
In other words?
In other words, I think that's how I would say it.
Where's Bria on your chart?
So the 4 spiritual worlds, Asiya, world of action, Yitzira, world of formation, Bria, world of creation. Right? So Bria is defined by intellect. It's a purely intellectual world, if you like. And so when my Torah and mitzvahs are inspired by an intellectual meditation, they can actually elevate up to the world of Bria, and it creates much more spiritual light, call it, in the chain of creation. The whole thing is kind of like, it's a weird thing, but say I was on an island, and there's no food on this island, and there's impassable body of water around my island, so I couldn't get through, whether it was waves and rocks or sharks or piranhas, imagine it's like you can't get through. And on the next island over, there's a whole grove with fruit and vegetables and berries, enough to live on forever. But here I am on my island, and all I have, luckily, is a fancy vegetation picking drone, if you can imagine such a thing, right? So good thing, I'm in luck, right? I happen to have the right tool. I can fly it over there and pick whatever I want, right? Now, what's more important? That I understand that my drone can fly over there and pick the vegetation, and that I intellectually get how to do that, I can figure it out and get it back? Or is it important that I have the most power possible and the most powerful signal possible, and I can fly the drone as far as I want, right? How much power do I actually need in my signal, and how much power do I need in my battery for this to be effective for me? Do you have to fly it 10 times past the island?
Each situation will indicate the answer to your question.
Yeah. I only need enough power to get the drone there and get the food back. That's all I need. If I have enough signal and power to do that, I'm good, right? Now, would I like more power? Maybe. Would I like a massive battery? Maybe. Would I like a signal that could fly 10 times just for security? Maybe. But ultimately, as long as I have enough signal to get there and back, I'm good, right? That served its purpose. Now I can live, I can eat, right? But if I don't have the intellect, if I give the controller to a monkey or to a toddler who doesn't understand what's happening, and it's not connected to my intellect, now it doesn't matter how much power that signal has or how much battery life the drone has, it's never going to get there and back. It's not going to fulfill its purpose, right? So the emotions, that's the battery power. That's the frequency strength of my drone here, right? And I can have very, very powerful emotions. I can fly that drone 10 times past the island and back. I can have a signal that'll reach anywhere. I can have battery life to fly for hours and hours. If it's not connected to an intelligent direction, it still is not going to get that food and bring it back. It's not going to do what the intellect intended. As long as my intellect is connected to that controller, and I can fly that drone and see, okay, I understand that's this, I need this, and pick it up and bring it back and don't drop it, I'm good. So same thing here. If the emotion is connected to intellect and comes from intellect, it can actually elevate the fruit from the world up back to its source. Now, would it be nice if I had more power and more emotion and I was at tzaddik and there were flaming emotions lifting up? Sure, great. That's nice. Not essential. Right? What matters is enough emotion to get the Torah mitzvahs up to their source back in Bria. And if I have enough emotion and it's connected to my intellect, it's going to get back to the intellectual world. If I don't use my intellect, if I just say, well, I'm going to let my emotions fly that drone, it's not going to get anywhere near the world of Bria. Maybe Yetzirah, right? So when the emotions are intellectually driven, when they're integrated with my intellect, now they're connected to that highest world of Bria, the third world up, and they can elevate Torah mitzvahs much higher than even very powerful emotions that were not generated by the intellect. So it's understanding the technical aspects of how meditation elevates Torah and commandments and not getting caught up in, the point isn't generating powerful emotions so I can feel like I'm a great Jew and I have this love and awe. That's not the point. The love and awe are there to elevate the world and elevate my animal soul. So in some ways, faint and not powerful intellectually generated emotions serve the purpose of my soul better than powerful emotions that are just there of their own accord. Yeah, Jack?
How does the world of Berea differ from the other worlds?
The other worlds, the world below Yetzirah has spiritual form. So I might say the building that I'm in Yetzirah, it has spiritual, call it dimensions. Spiritually, it doesn't have the capacity to grow and move. It's inanimate, right? But there's no even spiritual substance. It's just pure form. So it's like this spiritual blueprint of the building. Going back up to Bria, this building I'm sitting in has no form. It's just a point of potential that could be a building, but I don't even know whether it's a building, what that building is. It's just before there was even a blueprint spiritually, there was just the possibility for a blueprint. That's all that Bria is. So Bria is the first world where there can be created beings that are distinct from godliness, but that's their only characteristic, is that they have the potential to be distinct beings. They have no other form whatsoever. So it's infinitely more abstract, right? All right, we're going far afield here. I apologize for that. Makom aliyat haTorah v'hamitzvot hanasim al yedei dechilu rechimu sichlim asher behitgalut libo mamash. Go ahead, Jack.
The world of Berea being the level to which ascends the performance of Torah and mitzvah, when motivated by a fear and love deriving from one's meditation and which are truly revealed in one's heart.
Right, so that's the natural world for tzaddikim, who have a revealed love and awe, who just, the idea of building a sukkah, they wake up early in the morning full of passion to build the sukkah, and they're very careful at every dimension, want to make sure nothing's off, and that's just, what else would enter their mind? They're consumed with love and fear, and that's their whole purpose of being, right? So for them, when they intellectually generate those powerful emotions, naturally, all those mitzvot will rise back up to the level of Bria. Right? For us, I don't naturally do that. I'm not that quality of person. Hi, guys. So I need to rely on tefuna emotions. But for me, those tefuna emotions are a more powerful pathway than just working up emotions for themselves that aren't necessarily intellectually generated. On the next page, Aval belav hache name olim leolam haitzira al yedei dechilu rechimu tivim hamesutarim belev kol Yisrael betoldotam kmo sheitber lekaman ba'arichut.
However, even without this joining, they rise to the world of
Yitzira,
by meaning of the natural fear and love which are latent in the heart of all Jews from birth, as will be later explained in length.
Right, so if I haven't engaged intellect to generate emotions, and I'm just relying on, I'm a Jew and I should love this, right? I would give it my life for this. We'll see that meditation later. We've looked at it a little. That will still allow Torah mitzvahs to be elevated and the animal soul to be elevated, but only to Yetzirah. Because now I'm not using my own intellect to generate emotions. I'm relying on emotions that they're in my epigenetics. I've inherited them. Right? So they're just, that's the soup in which Jewish souls swim, is these love and fear of God emotions, and I can rely on what I've inherited and work with that. That'll get it up to Yetzirah. Also a great accomplishment, but it's not Bria, right? So now we're going to start chapter 17, and let's review where we are, because we've gone a long way. We started looking in chapter 1 at the idea that we have two souls, and we were introduced to the animal soul, which is that purely self-centered soul. Right, then chapter 2, we looked at the divine soul, which is an actual piece of God that's in us. Chapter 3, we looked at all these internal aspects of the divine soul, the intellect and emotions, and we learned about the structure of those. Chapter 4, we learned about the garments of the soul. So we know that thought, speech, and action are just external aspects of the soul that the soul puts on. If you remember, chapter 5 was a detour about Torah study and how it's the most beautiful form of union between the lowest and highest possible thing in the cosmos, that we unite through God by learning Torah, and God's chokhmah is never separate from God, so when we infuse that into ourselves, there's a union between us and God, and the Torah surrounds us, and we surround the Torah. That was a nice, inspiring chapter. 6, we looked at the garments and the aspects of the animal soul, which is the same as the divine soul. So the animal soul also is a full soul, has intellect, has emotion, has thought, speech, and action. It's not this like animal thing that can't sit down and play chess with us. It certainly can, and it can't have a spiritual experience. It certainly can. The animal soul is a full soul with the same aspects as the divine soul. Then 7 and 8, we looked at how that projects into the world. If you remember, the world is made up of klipas noga, which is stuff that I can use this technique to elevate. Right? So if I'm using my long, short pathway and meditating, now I recognize there's, for instance, food that I can elevate on a normal day that on Yom Kippur, now I can't elevate. So on a normal day, food for a Jew is klipas noga, and fine, say a blessing, do good things with it, you'll elevate it back up to Bria perhaps. But on Yom Kippur, we fast, and it shifts back to 3 impure klipot. And there it's tied to the physical cosmos, and we can't untie it and elevate it. We can only work with klipas noga. So we learned a lot about how the physical world is also divided into those aspects, and a whole section on tshuva, which we won't get into now. Then chapter 9, we started looking at, now we move out of the information section of the Tanya. We start learning about the dynamics of these personalities. So 9, we learned about the war, so to speak, between the animal and divine soul, how that happens in the heart, and the divine soul is housed in the brain and the right side of the heart, the animal soul in the blood and the left side of the heart. Remember that? Like two kings fighting over a city, the city being the body. Then 10, we learned about the tzaddik in more detail and the different types of a tzaddik. 11, we learned about the rasha. And then 12, 13, 14, 15, 4 chapters dedicated to the Beinoni, which is what we can all achieve, right? Being like a rasha on the inside, perhaps, but being like a tzaddik in terms of our thought, speech, and action. So that's a Beinoni, and there's a constant struggle, typically, because I still have immature impulses, and yet I'm controlling thought, speech, and action to the extent that from the outside, there's no difference between me and a tzaddik. It's a very, very lofty achievement. And we learned about other aspects. The mind controls the heart. We learned about that Beinoni is judged by both the evil and the good intentions, so they're just like a rasha. They're not actually a rasha. We worked out those questions. And then finally, in chapter 16, we started learning the core technique of the Tanya, which is the long, short way, where now we've looked at systems of meditation, and we have a toehold in how to meditate in these Jewish pathways, which can deepen and broaden and fill our minds more and more to generate emotions, to let us elevate our own share of the world. Everybody caught up? That good? So feel free to text questions if you're watching from home. Chapter 17. Now, does anybody remember way back, when did we start, Noreen? How long ago was it?
Oh my God, 2 years?
No, not with Sharich Limana. When did we start the Tanya, this section of the Tanya?
This section?
How long ago was it? Anybody? Adam, do you know when the first broadcast was? I think it was. While I thumb through and look for the.
If I remember what I did yesterday.
Yeah, there you go.
The first broadcast was June 18th of last year.
June 18th of last year. So we're about a year. So on that title page, right, there was a quote. Remember, Likutei Amorim, and the quote said, compiled from sacred books, based on the verse, "For this thing is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it." Right? That's the definitive verse that is the subject of the whole Tanya that we're learning. Now, in the past year, how many times have we talked about that quote? You don't remember because we haven't. Right? How many times has the Alter Rebbe brought up that quote that the whole book is based on from that time to this time in the first 16 chapters of the Tanya? None. No times, right? So he's really saved it for this chapter. Now, finally, we get back to what is the central verse of the whole book, and he says, with this explanation, which really is the entire time that we learned so far, we can understand the verse that this whole book is about. So this should be a very big drum roll and a very big aha moment where he couldn't, as much as we picked apart other verses, remember we picked apart the oath and all the questions around that, he hasn't brought this verse up again in 16 chapters. So we needed all that to understand what he's going to get at in this chapter, and lest we think this is just a gloss or detail, what he's about to say about tefuna and about the heart and doing it, this is the first time he's bringing up the whole verse that the book is about. So he really wants us to pay attention to this. You with me? So chapter 17, Uvazeh yuvan ma shekatuv. Go ahead, Marcia. Oh, it's, okay.
Explanation that even a fear and love of God, which remain concealed in one's mind and heart, suffice to infuse one's fulfillment of the commandments with vitality, therefore perfecting and elevating them. We will understand the verse.
Okay, so the editor feels that this, vazeh, refers to the last point we made, that you don't need full emotions. I'd agree with that. You don't need full-fledged, raging emotions to elevate, fulfill commandments with vitality and elevate them. you can use tfuna emotions just as effectively to elevate them, will understand ki karov elecha davar meod bificha ulevavcha lasoto.
For this thing is very near to you, in your mouth, in your heart, that you may do it.
This verse.
Okay. The verse states that it is easy for one to fulfill Torah and mitzvah with all three garments of the soul: thought, speech, and actions. The words with your mouth refer to speech, with your heart to thought, and that you may do it refers to action. In a deeper sense, however, your heart refers not only to the power of thought, but also to the heart as the seat of emotions, love, fear, and so on. The verse is telling us then that it is within easy reach of every Jew to fulfill the mitzvot with a feeling of awe and love of God. Concerning this, the Alter Rebbe poses the question.
Right. So to be clear, what your heart means. Sometimes your heart in Torah means really your mind, right? Because heart was seen as a seat of intellect much more clearly in biblical thought and in kabbalistic thought. So bilvavcha doesn't necessarily mean with your emotions. It could also mean with your perception, right? But here the Alter Rebbe is saying, no, it really means with emotion, right? It's very near to you to do these things with your mouth speaking, with your heart, with full emotion, lasato, and with deed, with action to do it. Very near to you. So what does the Alter Rebbe usually do when he brings up a quote? What's the first thing he does? He picks the quote apart and tells you why it can't possibly be true, right? There's a big problem with this quote. So here we go. Dilichora hu bilvavcha neged chush shalanu.
At first glance, the statement that this thing is very near to you in your heart seems contrary to our experience. In our experience, we find that it is no simple feat to acquire a spirit of love and fear of God.
Right, so how many people tried counting the Omer at any point this past, anybody try it? Yeah, we did it, right? So did you automatically have huge excitement for counting the Omer? Was it like on your mind all day, and how could you possibly forget it? And when you were there, were you finally like shaking with excitement and awe? No. Right? I'm trying this out. It's kind of weird. I'm doing this. I feel pretty neutral about it. Right? I don't have huge love and awe like I would about seeing the next Spider-Man movie. Wow, I'm excited. Right? That's easy. Right? So saying, what does this mean? It's very near to you to feel emotions about doing Torah mitzvahs. What kind of a statement is that? Right? It doesn't seem to match our experience. Right? If I learned in some class that counting the Omer is a Jewish tradition and a mitzvah, and I want to try it, it's not easy to have love for that. I could easily forget it entirely and go, whoops, I intended to do it, but I didn't have enough emotional drive to even have it enter my mind, and I forgot to do it. Right? It's hard to do. So what is this quote talking about? The thing is very near to you to do with emotions. So is it possible that he's only talking about tzaddikim? Or maybe only people as they were standing at Sinai or in the desert listening to Moshe. For them it was near, because here they are, they're seeing Moshe, they just had an encounter with God. Maybe Moshe is only talking about them or about tzaddikim. V'Torah hi nitzchit. Yet
the Torah is eternal. Hence, it could not refer only to Moses' generation, a generation of understanding, but must hold true for our own age as well.
Right, so we know that for us, we're looking at the Torah as a way of connecting to the Ein Sof, which is infinite, and it's something that has to be true in some way at every point. Right, so you can't say, oh, the reason this makes sense is because for Moshe or for that generation, it was near to them, but not for us, obviously, right? It has to speak to us in some way according to Kabbalah. So that's one option, but we're putting that off the table. שאין קרוב מאוד הדבר להפך ליבו מתאוות העולם הזה לאהבת השם באמת. In our experience, it is not a very near thing to change one's heart from worldly desires to a sincere love of God, for by nature one's inclined towards the former. Right, and he quotes another text here, but I think we'd all agree, if I dislike a particular musical, which I won't bring up again, or a sport, which I will not name, right? And if I dislike them, could I make myself love that musical or that sport? Maybe, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to take something I don't have a love for and create a love for it. That's not easy, right? So it's not a very near thing to change my heart, certainly from loving food and sleep and movies to loving abstract things like Judaism and Ein Sof and all that, right? That's a difficult thing. Yeah?
Could it be that different times in your life that changes?
Well, yeah, and that speaks to very nicely to his definition of truth. That truth, the bolt that goes through every aspect of the Mishkan, and that truth at every level has a different aspect. And maybe for us, the truth is sometimes I can do it, right? And that was part of the truth of the service of a Beinoni. So that answer probably would fit in the context. I like that. Yeah, but he's actually going for something else here. וכמו שכתוב בגמרא, עטו ירא מילתא זוטרתיהי.
Indeed, commenting on Moses' statement, when does God ask of you but to fear him? The Talmud queries, is fear of heaven a small matter?
Right, so we bring up the Talmud. The Talmud had the same question, right? When we had the quote, what does God ask of us but to fear God? Like, that's all God wants. If you don't do anything else, just fear me and I'll be happy, right? Like, that's, at least it's the least you could do. And the Talmud says, is fear of God such a small matter? I mean, I'm crossing the street and I hear a horn. I turn and I jump and my heart's going. That's a small matter. I don't have to work very hard to have fear in that situation. But I'm walking down the street and I realize I forgot to say the morning Shema like I planned to today. And does my heart start going? Do I jump? Do I look around? It's not a small matter that I have to generate.
What about the Shema when God says, asks to love him?
Yeah, love is involved too, yeah. So is
With
love a small
fear?
matter? Both love and fear.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Joey. V'chol sheken ahava.
And if this is true, and if this is true of fear of God, then how much more so a love of God? For fear of God is generally more easily attainable than love of God.
So that's an interesting statement. We don't have to dwell on that. It's not that important. But in Kabbalah, fear is seen, and awe and respect is seen as an easier to accomplish aspect, usually the aspect that comes first, and also one that we can, by our own initiative, elevate to higher and higher states of fear on our own, with our own work. Whereas love is seen as more difficult to generate, usually comes second after fear or respect, and there are levels of love which are outside of our ability to generate no matter how much work we do. So the highest levels of fear and the highest levels of love, on the fear side, you can attain them by working. You can achieve the highest states of consciousness of fear. But love, you can only rise up to just below them, and then you wait. They come as a gift from above. Right? And Steinsaltz says, well, fear is basically a passive thing, right? A dog barks at me, I'm afraid, I don't have to generate anything. But to love something, that I have to have experience with it, I have to engage with it, I have to think about it. Loved is a more active thing. He kind of explains it that way. But by the way, we're talking about both here, right? וגם אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה דצדיקים דווקא ליבם ברשותם. Moreover.
Okay. Moreover, our sages also said that only tzaddikim have control over their hearts to arouse a love and fear of God whenever they so desire.
Yeah, so, and what about this? We've learned already that a normal person doesn't have control over their heart. Even a Beinoni, right? The whole point of this book, to become a Beinoni, they still can't control their heart, and they might have love for worldly things all day long, and have no palpable excitement for abstract spiritual things. And only tzaddikim actually can transform their heart so that they naturally feel love and awe for appropriate, mature things, right? So not only is it difficult, for some of us it's not even possible. Yeah, for some of us it's a whole life of work and you still won't achieve that. Only a tzaddik can achieve that.
Except if you're in a foxhole.
Well, what are you fearing?
Love and fear.
But of what? And for what?
Of God.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
But what's
a very frightening situation. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, a lot of those emotions become very heightened.
Okay, but it's because I'm fearing the bullets, right? Without the bullets, I'm not there.
Yeah.
So it's still it's a worldly experience that
Oh, I
creates
see.
that phenomenon, right? So you put me in a foxhole,
Okay.
please God save me, right?
Right.
But what's my fear of? My fear is of the bullet, right? I'm not in the foxhole, and I lose my faith again, and I'm back where I started, right? So that's a situation where I'm actually fearing a physical thing, not so that's easy, right? We all know we can do that. The question is, sitting here in West Bloomfield, thank God, in a peaceful situation with all that I need around me, can I still have that connection with God? It's not so easy emotionally, right? For a tzaddik, yeah, but for me, it may not even be possible. So how can Moshe say the thing is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart to do it, when it may not even be possible, let alone is it difficult? Yeah, that's Moshe. That quote is Moshe. אלא דלעשתו רוצה לומר אהבה המביאה לידי עשיית המצוות בלבד.
But the words that you may do it refer to a love which merely leads to the fulfillment of the commandments, although strictly speaking it is not an actual love.
Yeah, so let's not do this big quote here, but let's introduce this idea. It's saying when we say la soto, it's actually not saying necessarily to do it. It is saying to do it, but it's also just a qualifier for bilvavcha, for in your heart. So rather than reading in your mouth and in your heart to do it, we're reading in your mouth and in your heart to do it. And to do it is a qualifier of what's happening in your heart. Right? So this whole chapter, the previous chapter, and then this quote, he's bringing out this one point that in your heart, to do it, aren't two separate things, but to do it means what kind of emotions are happening in your heart, the kind that lead you to do it, right? Which in our case can be tuna emotions. So remember our drone example, right? How much power do I need in that drone? How much signal, how much battery? Enough to get the fruit over, right? If I got the fruit over, good. I need enough power to do it. Same thing with the heart. Do I want to have tremendous emotions in my heart? Is that very near to me? Maybe not. I do want to have them. Maybe it's not near. But enough emotions to do the thing, that is very near to you. Right? So when we meditate and we create just tuna emotions, and then those lead to us doing a mitzvah, by many of the models we looked at, whether you're looking at that our soul is at the level of not at the level of birth, but the level of embryonic, where the emotions are still within the intellect of the cosmos. Remember that quote from the Arizal. Whether you want to look at it from the past note, where he said sometimes the tefuna goes directly to thought, speech, and action. It doesn't go to the emotions. However you want to look at it, as long as I have created tefuna emotions, and those are active in my heart, not real, palpable, life-changing emotions, but subtle intellectual emotions, and now I'm doing it, that's the kind of in your heart that's very near to us. And as we'll see, we understand now that because the mind controls the heart, we can always generate those emotions. Right? I may not always be able to generate life-changing, hugely fiery emotions. I can always generate my tefuna emotions, and that's the one that Moshe is talking about. When he says, Bilvavcha lasato, he means in your heart to do it. As in, the emotions that cause you to do something, those are the emotions I'm talking about, and those emotions are very near to you. Not the tzaddik emotions, but the emotions that lead to action. Which are the tefuna emotions in our case. Maybe in some cases more, right? If I have a favorite mitzvah that I'm excited about, great. Then I have more tzaddik-like emotions. But if I only have tefuna emotions, those are always near to me. And in every situation, I can direct my mind away from what it wants to dwell on, direct it to something mature, generate my tefuna emotions, and then in whatever my situation, whatever the trigger, I can at least create enough tefuna emotion to do the appropriate thing. And that's what Moshe is talking about. And that's why the Alter Rebbe waited 16 chapters to bring this verse in. Because this is not a detail. This is not like a subtlety. This is a genuine pathway. We want to strengthen ourselves. That tefuna is it's a real living conscious experience that we can engage to more masterfully direct how our soul flows through our body. That's the user's guide to the soul. This is like the key, is that twin emotions are always accessible, and twin emotions can drive thought, speech, and action as well as any and elevate every aspect of the world we need to elevate. And maybe I don't have strong emotions like, yay, I'm counting Yomer, but I have a deep sense of satisfaction that my soul has learned how to fulfill its purpose. All right. Let's take just a few moments before we go. If you find yourself in a relaxed position, and let's just touch on our long short path. Allow your breath to slow down and open up the four aspects of your breath: the breath in, the pause, the breath out, and the pause. If you like, flow with me, counting in breath and 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll wait there. 2, 3, 4. Breathing out. 2, 3, 4. And holding there. 2, 3, 4. Just go through a few cycles of that. If you're comfortable, allow the breath to move down into your belly on the in-breath this time. That big belly breathing that babies do when they're relaxed and safe. You breathe this way, your whole system understands that you're in a good place. It's time to take in the whole breadth of experience of life. And let's open up that wisdom gateway, which is the pause between the in-breath and the out-breath. We're using that as a wisdom gateway to introduce our meditation. Perhaps that gateway is clearer than a few weeks ago or brighter. You find yourself more integrated with it. In that gateway, let's place our meditation. Se'u marom enechem, lift up your eyes, the 3 letters of the Shema. And however you visualize the letters of the Shema, allow them to expand, grow. Feel free to add color. High resolution display. Let's use this as the touchstone for the rest of the day and perhaps the rest of the week. Any sense of intellectual emotion, any sense that this is an appropriate way of looking at life, that there's a higher perspective, there's a meaning in every interaction, I should get excited about that. You can allow those twin emotions to drive your thought, speech, and action throughout the week. Anytime you need, you direct your mind to this wisdom gateway, and those twin emotions will be there to achieve anything your soul needs in whatever situation. Let's open our eyes. Good work. This is amazing stuff. I'll hang out for conversation and questions. I'm very proud of you all. Amazing stuff.